Welcome, everybody, to a special late-breaking edition of SJU. I'm Billy Business, joined by the Professor, Lon Harris, and Eric, we need a nickname, Goldman. I'm sure you have a lot. Gentlemen, we had to go live because there is some news that just came out, and comic book movie news has been a little strange the past few days. We're just going to keep on rolling with it. Jared Leto is reprising his role as the Joker in Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Snyder Cut. I don't know how they're titling it. This was broken by, I believe, The Hollywood Reporter as an exclusive. It's part of the reshoots, which we know are happening right now. I believe Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, a lot of the main cast members coming back. But Jared Leto is an interesting one because, as you may or may not remember, a couple years ago, he was pretty upset that they were going to do an out-of-universe Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix, which became 2019's Joker. And now he is coming back in a movie that, to be quite honest with you, I have no idea if he was originally part of Zack Snyder's script for Justice League. A lot of questions, the main one being, how do we feel about Leto getting a second chance? Could this maybe redeem the character? But almost more importantly, number two, how big are these reshoots for Justice League? And at what point is it not reshoots, but just remaking the movie entirely? Boys, let's have at it.
It's a lot, Billy. It's a lot. I don't even know.
So much going on.
There's so much going on. Look, I'm going to be real here and say I really didn't like Batman vs. Superman, and I really didn't like Justice League, and I really didn't like Suicide Squad. So this is all so strange to me. Like the fact that we can't move on, even though DC's done great movies since. And they've done huge hits since, and I don't know. This is so strange. Jared Leto coming back is a very odd thing. I remember there were rumors about it with Birds of Prey, which are not to be true. His Joker came back, but without needing him there. But now they say he's actually shooting new material, and it's really odd. But it also does sound like you mentioned that they are shooting substantial new stuff for this movie, and that it just kind of keeps digging away at the idea that there was a Snyder Cut ready to go. Does not sound true when it's like they are doing this much to shape something new.
Yeah, I mean, the whole fact that it's being sort of reimagined now as like a mini series or a limited series, like it's going to be a multi-part event on HBO Max. That's conceptually different. The original version of this was just going to be a movie. So as soon as you change your focus, and obviously like the cut of the movie was too long, they were going to cut it down for theaters. But like once you make that leap, okay, we're no longer making a movie. Now we're making like functionally a TV show. Yeah, everything, I feel like your thought process on it changes. And now there's a lot more that you're going to have the time and wherewithal to explore. So like right from there, even without the like hundreds of millions of dollars they're spending on reshoots, kind of tips you off that, well, this is a different approach entirely to this same story he always wanted to tell.
And the timing couldn't be more interesting. We talked about kind of weird comic book nostalgia news, but also one of the bigger things that was going around Twitter, I believe it was over the weekend, if not a couple days ago, was David Ayer saying, my cut of Suicide Squad is fire, and there's a lot of talk about like...
that was Monday's headline here on that we did, that was our episode on Monday here.
Yeah, go back and watch that, and you can see what we thought about that. But it just begs the question, like, is this kind of a part of something bigger? Is the Snyder Cut just the beginning? And if so, what is Warner Brothers' kind of strategy here? It seems like, they were so focused for a while on moving forward, and now it's like they're pausing and looking back to see if maybe they could just redo it over again. I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, that has always been kind of baked in. Like, there was all this Donner cut Superman. Like, we've always had this idea of some of these movies, the audience's takes on them change over time. The studios are sometimes so involved that people want to see the earlier cuts. So, like, that, going back and, like, restoring an older cut or whatever, I think makes some sense. We are also turning a page in terms of, like, these redemption arcs. Like, we were talking a little bit before the stream about Jamie Foxx coming back as Electro in the MCU Spider-Man 3. And, like, again, that's interesting because that's something we haven't... Usually it's projects that over time have come to appeal to people maybe more, or that built a cult audience that fervently loves it, and so we want to go back and, like, expand on whatever they like. This is now a case of things that were sort of rejected by the audiences originally that now we're like, well, let's give them another chance and see if they can redeem themselves on take two.
Yeah, it's so strange because we talked also about how it seems like both DC and Marvel are going into a big multiverse thing happening, and that, yes, probably audiences are way more primed for that now to even understand conceptually, a mainstream audience, I mean, who doesn't read comic books, to understand that. But it almost seems like DC is like tripling down here to be like, let's see how much we can throw at you without confusing you. To have like multiple Jokers and multiple Batman at the same time, and Flashpoint's going to address that, but the Snyder Cut will be its own thing, and Matt Reeves, the Batman, will be its own thing. And I'm not saying it's like, look, I'm not even saying like Jared Leto is the Joker. Like, I hated how he looked, right? And then in Suicide Squad, which I thought was a terrible movie, he wasn't even in it that much to even have a big impression. Could there be some great stuff with him, even in the Air Cut, if that ever happens, or in this? Sure, but it also just seems more like it's strange going back. It just seems this strange thing where DC has been progressing since 2016 and has moved on with their movies. So it's very strange that this Snyder Cut thing keeps being this thing that keeps snowballing and won't let them move on. Maybe once it's out, we can move on, but until it does, it's very strange.
I want to talk about real quick. So, I think it's safe to say that the general public maybe didn't care for that version of the Joker. I feel like that's a pretty blanket statement. Of course there's going to be fans. But overall, I think everyone was left a little puzzled at best. I'm wondering... Now, see, here's the thing. I'm a sucker for big swings. I think when you have a character like the Joker that has been interpreted so many times, and so many times just, like, pitch perfectly, I almost felt bad in a sense, like, what is there left to do? They took a swing. I don't know if it worked. I don't blame Leto entirely for that performance, but I want to ask you guys real quick, what do you think could happen in the Snyder Cut that maybe could reverse your thoughts, or is there anything that could redeem that version of the Joker for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's all Jared Leto's fault. He's been good in movies. I wouldn't pin this entirely on him. I think conceptually, to me, this was not a very interesting take on the Joker. Like, the Joker plus like Tuco Salamanca from Breaking Bad together is like, I just don't know. I don't know how much there is really to explore there that's that interesting of a take. So I think that was kind of the problem. And maybe if we sort of move away from some of the stuff he was doing in Suicide Squad and give him a new angle to play with this Joker, sure, like Jared Leto's capable of being good in movies. I don't think there's no chance. I just think, the whole version of, and it was not limited to the Joker. Like, I didn't think a lot of things conceptually worked about Suicide Squad. This was one of many. Yeah. But, I guess there's always a chance with a new creative team that you'll come up with something better. It was not my favorite version of the Joker we've had recently, with so many other great actors doing interesting roles.
And you just have to wonder, I assume it's not a substantial, he's not shooting like for weeks or anything. It just, how can they, again, as much as we're joking about how much they're changing this, fundamentally, if it's a Justice League story that's still the basic framework we saw in that movie, the Joker can't suddenly be a major part of it as much as I think maybe this budget will keep ballooning until it's $200 million just for the reshoots. So then I'm curious, I guess, spoiler alert for the post-credit scene of the theatrical version of Justice League from 2017, but it's like, that clearly was setting up like the Legion of Doom, right? So it's like, is that it? Like, will they just kind of seed him in there too? Again, and is that setting up something we'll never see follow-up to? Or are they thinking it more with this? That's the thing, is bringing him back just to kind of one-off and kind of a like, oh, he gets to come back one more time because he didn't really get a fair shot because he was in a bad movie and then he got cut for most of it anyway. Or is it like, hey, we want to do more with this, which is very strange if they do.
Well, it's interesting because and correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a little while since I've seen it. We don't spend very much time in Gotham in Justice League. There's that opening bit where Batman's fighting the Parademon. But other than that, I feel like we're not really in Gotham for a ton of the runtime of that movie. So it's sure
very
what
unclear.
The context would be.
It's unclear because I'm sure someone is screaming at their monitor right now, but it's just like
I might be wrong.
There's definitely conversations, earlier in the movie with Wonder Woman and Bruce, and they're at his compound. But then, like when she meets Cyborg on the street, I have no idea where that takes place. I guess it doesn't really matter. But another thing I want to talk about, and
I guess
we touched on this at the beginning, but I kind of want to go into a little bit more detail. This was from The Hollywood Reporter. This was dated October 19th, 2019. So this was about maybe a couple weeks before Joaquin Phoenix Joker had come out. And this story was all about how Leto, just to kind of summarize it, and I encourage you to go read it yourself, but it was, he felt a little jilted that they didn't try harder to basically make his version of the Joker a priority, him being an Oscar winner, the irony being that Joaquin Phoenix went on to win awards for his portrayal of the Joker. And there, at the time, there was a lot of strain between Leto and his agency CAA, who he felt they should have fought harder. And the source says, quote, in this article, Leto's days as the Joker likely are over. He will not reprise his role for Warner's upcoming Birds of Prey or in James Gunn's Suicide Squad. Quote, how do you play the Joker you established following Joaquin Phoenix? It kind of ends his Joker run. So, look, the cynical answer is money. But let's put that aside for a second. What do you think would cause Jared Leto to want to be like, okay, someone just won an Oscar for their portrayal of something that I was really upset about. What would make him come back to the role of Joker?
Oh, I get it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I wonder if maybe it was just Snyder talking. You know, see, he doesn't have a history with Snyder, right? Like, all the guys like Affleck and all those guys who filmed an entire movie with Snyder and then had most of that movie, not most of that movie, but at least it sounds like a good chunk of that movie reshot. They felt like loyalty to Snyder and they wanted to come back and do this. Leto doesn't have that, but I could see Snyder maybe just coming to him and being like, hey, I think you got a raw deal, just like I got a raw deal. And isn't this maybe a way we can all set it right? You know? And you can come back and again, maybe it's just one scene, but it's a great scene. Like, I want to give you the great scene you never got that at least didn't make it to the screen. So I wonder if it's something like that, right? Just feeling like selling them on like the closure you didn't get. That could be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, Leto always sort of had that I didn't get to really show people my best Joker. Like, right after the movie came out, he started talking about, oh, there was so much stuff that we shot that didn't make it into the movie, and there's a whole movie's worth of Joker footage that you've never seen, and some of my favorite stuff. And so, yeah, I definitely think he feels like he's got something to prove, and that he was doing better stuff than we got in that Suicide Squad movie. And, like, this is a redemption chance to, like, come back and do a better, do the performance in a better movie that showcases it in a more positive way. Like, that part totally makes sense. Why he'd want to do it makes sense to me. Why Warner Brothers would be like, yes, that's a little more obscure.
Do you think that this is just kind of the olive branch before Jared Leto comes back into the fold of DC, or do you think this is kind of like, we'll give him this moment, we're all happy, and this is kind of a bigger kind of, you know, making peace with Warner Brothers rather than folding back into the DCEU?
That's the weird question, right? Because I want, my gut is it's just going to be this one-off, but then, right, the fact that it even came back at all, we never saw that coming. Because they're at a strange place, right? Because Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn continues on. But meanwhile, Robert Pattinson is their new main Batman, but Ben Affleck's also in the Flash movie, which again, we think maybe they're going to try to reconcile by the end of the Flash movie. So I would assume no, because I think they're going to give Robert Pattinson his own Joker to fight at some point, right? That's just inevitable. There's got to be another Joker. We keep getting another Joker every year. But right now, it seems never say never, right? Because I don't think we ever thought like he would be filming these new scenes at all. So yeah, I guess I don't want to say for sure.
I think this is a trial balloon. I think they're putting so much money and promotion and effort into the Snyder Cut, and they want to see how much enthusiasm there is and how many people get HBO Max just to watch it. And I think they'll probably make some decisions. Like, I think that the door is totally open after this. If this gets huge response and people love it and a lot of people join HBO Max, yeah, I think they're going to keep a Snyderverse going, and maybe they'll just have a simultaneous Reeves-verse and Snyder-verse. Like, at this point, I think all bets are off and there's no more conventional wisdom. And, you know, like, you've still got a Wonder Woman franchise in this world going. You've still got, you know, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, which fits back into the Snyderverse. You've still got the Flash, which could fold into the Snyderverse. I think they could definitely keep going if they, you know, if this does well, and maybe we'll finally get Man of Steel 3 or something. Who knows?
And maybe the Peacemaker TV series. I say this now. Jared Leto as the Joker will be the main villain in James Gunn's Peacemaker series.
I mean,
know?
at this point,
who
like,
knows?
Right. I mean, once you're bringing back like Michael Keaton, it's like we'll do whatever we want. There's no rules. Like,
do you think that Leto makes a surprise appearance in James Gunn's Suicide Squad?
I mean, even
suddenly that seems possible.
Yeah, I mean, even if it wasn't planned before, maybe now. Yeah.
So you just brought up something interesting, and I just kind of want to get your thoughts. In the last, I mean, I'm even going to go back a year. In the last year, we have seen Brandon Routh be Superman again. We've heard that Michael Keaton is coming back as Batman, and he's doing his damnedest to try to play coy, but it's like, dude, we already saw the production art. Like, it's happening. Is there any piece of DC news after now Leto shooting scenes as Joker? Is there any piece of DC movie news that legitimately at this point you'd be like, I did not see that coming?
No, right? Because even like, Nicholson, who's like mostly retired, if you're like, oh, he'll do one last appearance as the Joker or a vocal appearance, it suddenly seems like, sure.
Helen Slater's return as Supergirl, I would have ruled out just a few years ago, and now feels almost inevitable. Like, I'm just waiting for the
As soon as you said it, I was like, are you sure that didn't happen in that CW?
I think it should be one film, and it should be Helen Slater's Supergirl and Halle Berry's Catwoman team up. Let's start the redemption.
Oh
arcs.
no! And don't forget Shaq Castile. Let's get him in there.
Wow! Yes.
I mean, at that point, you've got to put in Josh Brolin's Jonah Hex to kind of round it out.
Yes, yeah,
glorious.
It writes itself, guys.
So, okay, big news. Any final thoughts on Jared Leto coming back as of now one more time in the DC universe?
I guess adding on to what we just said, by the way, suddenly I feel one day George Clooney's going to play Batman again.
Bring it on. I'm ready.
Right.
Yeah, and Chris O'Donnell.
Final thought on Leto specifically? I don't know. Like, I just this Snyder. One day I really hope we get a real tell-all on everything that happened with the Snyder Cut thing, especially coming back to do this version of it, because it really sounds like
it's going to make a great podcast
art.
turned docu-series in like 7 to 10 years. I'm really going to enjoy listening to that.
Well, it seems like every single day we are breaking some sort of crazy news that seems even more outlandish than the day before. So stick with SJU, where us knuckleheads will talk about it. Hit the bell, like and subscribe. And if you're a Star Wars fan, I feel like there's probably some good crossover between DC and Star Wars fans. Next Friday, October 30th, we are doing Fandom 5 trivia for Star Wars. If you've got that Star Wars knowledge, you could win some cash. I'm telling you, money for knowing Star Wars. It seems like a no-brainer. So definitely be there for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. And tell us in the comments what you guys think about Jared Leto. I can't wait to read all these because it's going to be nuts. See you guys later.
Really quick programming note, if we didn't go, but we won't be doing a No More show tomorrow morning. We'll be back Friday with a review, just so everyone knows if they're watching SJU. So
what are we reviewing? Borat?
Sorry?
What are we reviewing?
Borat 2.
All right, Borat 2 review. Oh boy. Very, very nice.
I like.
See you guys later. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.